Hello, and welcome to Envision, the show where we talk to successful entrepreneurs to find out what drives them, lessons they've learned from their business career, and thoughts on the Cape Fear region. I'm your host, Jonathan Rowe, and with us today is Pam Marinko, co-founder and CEO of Proficient Learning. Thank you for being here today, Pam.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Let's start out. There's a lot of interesting things, I think, from your background especially, which would be a great place to start. Now, you spent 25 years in the pharma industry, and I think what's really fascinating about that is you were working for large organizations and other companies, and then you've now spun out and started your own business, Proficient Learning, and been very successful thus far with that. Talk a little bit about how your career progressed, and then most importantly, that decision you made to then 25 years into your career decide to start a business.
Starting right after college, I started in sales. So yes, I was with a very large company, and I went to school at Ohio State and was in the marketing and international business program there, and thought I wanted to go with a company that was larger, that was global, that was a Fortune 100 company, and so I made the decision to do that, and had a very successful career and series of experiences with that company, and then moved and progressed to a couple of different other companies in sales and in marketing, and then continued to progress beyond sales into sales training, where I could use my expertise to help sales professionals be better, improve their skills, be more successful, and so forth. And that's where I really found what was really exciting for me, was using the skills and the talents and the abilities that I had accumulated over the years with these larger companies, and could find a way to focus that with sales professionals, help them be better at what they do, help them be more successful, and so forth. So when the opportunity presented itself in the market, it was a combination of market conditions and also my personal situation, where I realized some of the training programs that I was facilitating for sales reps weren't quite getting to the point that I needed them to get to. So they weren't quite as efficient or effective, or they weren't real, they weren't genuine, and there had been a lot of sessions that I had participated in as a sales rep that just felt like they didn't quite resonate with me. So my quest was always to find a program that was better, was more meaningful, would help drive results a little better. So having been with large companies and seeing the way that they did things, their systems, their processes, their best practices, all of those things apply in any environment, really. So the opportunity presented itself where there was a definite need in the market for sales training that focused on results, that helped sales professionals really hone their skills, and that combined with my experience and the people that I knew, the network I had developed, that lent itself very well to starting Proficient Learning, which was a training company focused on sales professionals.
Was it as smooth a transition as it sounds? Because obviously we teach entrepreneurship here at UNCW and involved with a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's not an easy process. And obviously you had an incredible amount of experience, but talk a little bit about maybe both the personal side and then the business side of making that transition and starting a business. Yeah,
it is nowhere near that easy. My personal situation actually is what brought me to Wilmington. I was recruited with a company that's based here in town, or was based here in town, and I was the director of training and development for that company. And there were some things that were happening within the company that led to ultimately its demise, and they divested of the division where I was working. So it was an interesting introspective time of, okay, now what? I'm in this wonderful city and this wonderful place with all these great experiences, and seeing a very significant need and a gap in the marketplace. And the idea came together fairly seamlessly, but in terms of the execution and how it all came together, it was a lot of internal struggle. What's the right thing to do? What if it doesn't work? What if it isn't exactly what the market needs? A lot of questions like that. So Starting out with a strong network makes a big difference. And I hadn't realized that I had developed such a strong network over the years. And based on that experience, based on the strength of the group of people that I was affiliated with and the skills and the experiences that I'd had, that's what lent itself well to a smoother transition. So it started slowly, with one person with a card table in the living room of my house, yeah. and just continued to grow and develop from there. So, yeah, not without struggles. No matter how I describe it, it sounds simpler than it was.
And I know for a lot of our viewers, especially either starting businesses or trying to grow them, right now it's difficult sometimes to get money and get financing to start a business. And you fill in some of the blanks for us, but your business in particular, because it's sort of a training service-related business, you didn't need a significant amount of funding to start it. Is that correct? And you were able to sort of build it with your own sweat equity and grow it.
It's a dramatic difference in starting a business that needs a lot of capital. Although I wouldn't say that's unimportant, no matter whether it's a service company or anything else. At the beginning, I think it's less of a critical factor because yes, it's sweat equity, it's me, it's my work, my time. It's you can accomplish a lot by just brute force and just stay up till midnight or pull an all-nighter if you need to. But as the company grew and as our client base grew, the demands were more significant. At that point, resources are a really key element, and you have to be well funded to support that. So if you're bringing on people, you have payroll responsibilities, you have all the operational functions of a business, and it's no longer in the living room, but you're now in an office space, there's a different requirement. So I would give anyone advice who's starting a business to make sure that they have a little bit set aside, at least some sort of a nest egg that's designated for the business. Just because going in without that safety net it can be risky, it can be a little unnerving. And if you need to get enough or get so much capital that you have to go to other people, you are beholden to them a bit in terms of your results and so forth. So you have someone else to answer to, and you're not really your own boss anymore.
Yeah, have you been able to, do you have external investors at all in Proficient Learning?
I am grateful that no, we don't.
So, again, for a lot of our audience who, you make the transition now, and you're talking about, you have office space, and you have employees. So now you're balancing not only the thing you love, which is the training and sales piece, but now you're dealing with hiring people, you're dealing with legal issues, negotiating office space, accounting. How was all of that? How did you sort of navigate some of that?
As an entrepreneur, when you you think about starting a business, you think about what you're passionately involved with. You think about the thing you love and how you're going to build a business around it. And you just think about the thing you love, and you don't really think about all those other elements as often. So even things like an employee handbook, like who knew you'd have to have an employee handbook? Who knew you'd have to have a system to distribute memos? The different things that you just don't oftentimes think of are the things that come up and you need to handle. And fortunately, I go back to something we talked about earlier, having been with very large companies with established systems and processes and infrastructure, that helped me understand what things need to be in place and understand that when you have a process in place, that helps make you more efficient, which then helps you be more profitable. Yeah. So that's an expression that an early mentor of mine taught me, and has been absolutely true since the day we started. So I think figuring out how to navigate the operational part of the business, two things are important. Number one is I had to realize my own limitations. I am not a legal expert, I'm not an accountant, I don't have those specific skills for me. So the key is, what is part two, make sure you have people around you who are experts at that. People that can, I don't know if you've heard the expression, can be a manager of one. So the people that I put in those positions manage themselves. So they have oversight naturally, but they're able to determine what needs to be done, take action, not have a lot of hand-holding take place, but really be able to independently and autonomously drive the results that I need to keep the business thriving and keep it successful. Yeah. So having those people in place, kind of an inner core of the support team or executive team or leadership team, operational team, those things are just critically important.
How do you sort of pick, and you've already answered part of the question, because you obviously had in place processes that people could walk in and succeed within the structure that you had created with Proficient Learning and be successful as an employee of Proficient Learning. But how do you pick those people? Because you often sometimes hear entrepreneurs, trying to find, you've got to find the best and brightest, right? Because when you've got a small group and you've got a growing company, you need people to step in and make things happen right away. How do you find those people, and how do you pick those people? Because I think that's probably a challenge in Wilmington and in Washington, D.C. It's everywhere. How have you been successful?
Yeah, it's hard everywhere. And that's also a lesson learned, too. So it's something that I think we've learned and cultivated some skills in that area in terms of doing that a little better. That's one of the things that we had made some mistakes with early on. So in a very small organization, if you hire poorly, as you said, it's extremely obvious, and it can really have a detrimental effect on the company. So you've got to, so number one, recognize when you've made a bad hire and fire quickly. If someone's not a good fit, they need to be managed out very quickly. In terms of finding the people that have the right fit, the thing that we did that was really pivotal for us was define our core values, which sounds like a kind of a lofty term. But the exercise that we went through was our leadership team. We got together with a flip chart and we said, okay, what are the characteristics that are consistent with success in our company? The people who have really driven results, who've been great, who've been really on it, who've jumped in, what are the things that those people have done consistently that drive success? And so we brainstormed a list of all those things. And then we figured out, okay, so the people that were not as successful, and it wasn't necessarily that they were poor employees or bad people, it's just that it wasn't a good fit. They didn't necessarily like the entrepreneurial environment, or for whatever reason, it just wasn't a good fit for them. So we brainstormed that list as well. So what are the things that people who are unsuccessful in this environment, what things were they exhibiting? And the key to that is, once we brainstormed those two lists, we needed to stay true to what the best performers exhibited. What were those behaviors? So when we hire, that's the first thing we talk about, is the core values of the company. The people that are successful with our company do these things. And we said to people pretty candidly in interviews, we know this is an interview, but we really mean it. This is going to be hard work, and this is the kind of culture that we have. We have a fantastic culture. And they need to like that. They need to like the collaborative, kind of inspirational environment that we have. And if they're not motivated by that kind of environment, then they're not going to be a good fit for our company. Yeah. So that was the biggest thing we did, is interview for core values. And then the second thing that I'll mention is, while a lot of people talk about interviewing skills, we train managers on how to interview appropriately and how to select the best candidates. The one thing I'll say is to listen to your gut. If you've got a little feeling somewhere inside that's saying, I don't know if this person's going to be a good fit or not, don't do it. Yeah. Just walk away. Yeah. And also, considering if there's really a lot of things that are interesting about that person, but you've still got that nagging feeling, try them out. Always do a trial period with people.
Like a honeymoon period.
Kind of, yeah, because I think people show on the job what they're made of. Once they're in the position for 30, 60 days, you know if it's a good fit or not. You've
taken some graduates and students from UNCW, and you've taken the time to sort of develop them as you have with your other employees. Because that, again, for an entrepreneur and somebody who's, there's not enough time in the day to do what you need to be doing. So how do you find then also students, and how important are students in finding young people and having sort of mentoring them within the business, and then having them succeed actually in the business and stay there?
All that's important. And so there are several parts, I think, to your question. The first is our eagerness and interest in hiring recent graduates, or we have a very strong belief in getting interns on board and letting people get exposed to our business, and they get to see small business from an insider's perspective. They learn about what we do, what is sales training, how have we found our niche? How do we drive success? But it's bigger than that too, because we're a small company. They get to interact with the executives on a daily basis almost. So they get really good exposure to what it's like to work in an organization. And it's helpful for us because it's a little preview of how will they do on the job. So talk about the 30, 60, 90-day trial period. That's an awesome trial period. So I'm just delighted that we found so many people that came from UNCW that were recent grads. We had them as interns and then transitioned them to full-time employees. So we actually have 6 students that we've brought on in the last couple of years into positions within the company, and they're fantastic. And part of the thing that it's difficult to work with people sometimes that don't have any business experience. So that is a challenge for us. We have some mechanisms in place, some things in place to help them get ramped up more quickly and learn about the business, learn about the industry. But I think that getting their perspective on what things are new, what things are different, what things are happening now. For example, 2 of the most recent hires that we have that are recent grads in the last year from UNCW, they are taking up the cause for our social networking marketing campaign. So they are going to be running that, and who better to do that than 2 young professionals who check Twitter every day because that's how they get their news. Yeah. So that's fantastic. And that's what I think the constant influx of new ideas helps us a lot.
I'd be definitely remiss if we didn't spend some time talking about sales and business development, because you're on sort of both sides. I mean, not only are you getting clients that you're selling to, but then you're teaching them sales skills. So I'd love to spend a couple minutes talking about that, because I think for a lot of viewers and for a lot of people who run businesses, I mean, sales is a way to grow your business. I mean, obviously, and those type of skills are critical, and especially nowadays with companies and individuals and consumers, every decision that involves cash or spending money is a much more thought out process. So if you could sort of encapsulate not only what you teach, but also how you sell, and have gotten some phenomenal clients. I mean, you've got 5 of the top 10 biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, right, are some of your clients. So share some of the secrets that you teach and that you yourself have used around sales.
I don't think there's a magic formula for getting sales, but there are a lot of things that are very trainable. And there are several skills that we do teach sales representatives to be successful in that business. So naturally, we need to practice what we preach. So when we're in front of our customers, I try to talk with them in the same way that I would be training their representatives or training their management team or training anybody on how to sell. So we use the same process, the same approach. The number one most important thing in sales of any kind is number one, to realize that everybody sells. Everyone sells in every environment, everything you're doing. If you're asking your sister to take the dog out, you're selling your sister on the idea of taking the dog out. Everybody sells. Yeah. So I think that's the first thing that everyone needs to realize in terms of the entrepreneurial and the business development piece of it. The other part that is right there in terms of being critical is to be genuine. If you feel like you're communicating with someone on a superficial level and that it's just kind of sounding good, but it doesn't really resonate, it doesn't really mean anything, it's a disconnect. And people perceive that and pick up on that within an instant. Yeah. So it's the same thing of like a used car salesman who's kind of superficial, doesn't really care about you or your interests, then it's not going to connect with you, and you're not going to make a decision, you're not going to buy from that person because it's not a good connection. Yeah. So I think communicating on a gut level is really important, and I think the other part of it that we work hard to do and to train is to somehow you've got to drop your own agenda. And it sounds counterintuitive, but when you're driving an agenda, you want sales, you're pushing for sales, and that's all you're thinking about, the person you're selling to will pick up on that, and it feels artificial. So if you have enough confidence in what you're doing and the programs and the services that you're offering, you should just kind of set that aside for a minute and find out, okay, what's really important to you, what's a need that's true for you, what's a pain point you're experiencing right now, and really listen. Yeah. And try to understand exactly what the issue is. Once you understand what the issue is, you're in the right place, it is the right time, and you have the right solution. You just have to trust that those things are in place. And if you listen well enough, it'll come together. So we then present the solution, and people say, oh, I can't believe you had the right solution for us.
Right. Now, do you subscribe to maybe the theory that, yes, obviously what you're selling is important, but I'd sort of make up an analogy, selling a surfboard to an Eskimo. Is it more about the individual than it is about what you're actually selling and the value it produces in the sales process? Or talk a little bit about how that balance works, the individual and then the product or service, the value that comes from that. With training and talking about sales, if you strip out the product piece, so you mentioned the example of selling your sister or your neighbor on walking the dog.
Yeah.
Is that sort of example that sounds like it's more about the individual and the technique and the thought process and how they approach a sales situation separate from the product. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's, I'm doing a poor job of asking the question, but how important is the product piece in the sales process versus the individual person who's selling?
Yes, I think it's secondary. I mean, in terms of finding out what the need is first, that has to come first. I mean, well, I said that twice, but it's true. So determining what the need is, what's really driving the concern, or they have to have some sort of a gap, or else they wouldn't be interested in talking with you at all. Anyway, right. They must have some sort of a need. So you just have to figure out what that is, and then map the solution to the need, versus the other way around. So if some people go in and they're all about their solution, they're driving their product no matter what, whether it's a good fit for you or not, like the surfboard to the Eskimo. Right. I mean, that some people would really try hard to sell that, but it doesn't work.
Right.
And because it's not really filling a genuine need. So I mean, it's certainly the product is critically important, and I think it's the vehicle to get what you need. Our approach, and the thing that we talk about so often, is our training process helps people learn how to do it better, how to drive results, how to get sales success, how to accelerate their performance in the field. It's not just the what of, okay, here are all the definitions, here's what you need to know, here's the process, the model, the system, whatever. That's all the vehicle. That's the tool. Right. It's really about how do you apply what you know, how do you apply this tool, how do you apply this process in your everyday life, in your job, to drive success. And so that's always where we're focused, and that's where we differentiate ourselves a bit, because a lot of other training companies teach the what, but they don't teach the how. And so we're really about driving the results, and we're very, very focused on our customer service to make sure that we are focused on results, that we're focused on the outcomes versus just focused on the process.
And you mentioned social media earlier, and again, you're in sort of a unique situation because, I mean, you're teaching sales and you're selling, I mean, you're doing sort of what you preach. So how is that now fitting into this whole puzzle of technology and social media and online advertising and brand and face-to-face selling? I mean, how have you sort of embraced some of that and then also taught some of that in terms of the sales process?
Well, and it's our industry and several other industries are highly regulated, and I think that it's challenging in some cases to really explore social networking as much as it could be. But at this point, we recognize the need to develop awareness of our company and awareness of our brand. And that's really the purpose for using those particular methods, using Twitter, using Facebook, using LinkedIn, using all the different things that are available to us in terms of new technology and new systems. And we've moved to a position where we're embracing that, because I think there's no, it's an accelerating kind of a process. It gets your word out, your news out, your information out, your brand out much more quickly to a lot more people. So we're just in the process of really leveraging it. We've had a Twitter account, we've had a Facebook, we've had all that for a couple of years, but we haven't really leveraged it or maximized it as much as we could have. So that's why we're working toward that now.
And what's interesting is because you're selling more to businesses, so you're
right.
not really necessarily interacting with consumers. So I guess that might be representative of social media and some of the online pieces now becoming very relevant in dealing with business-to-business interactions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And in the B2B environment, within the corporate structure, of these big companies, because now I'm selling to the companies that are similar to the ones I came from,
Right.
so I understand firsthand the restrictions, just firewalls within organizations, and they don't want their people necessarily going out into the internet, going out into Facebook, going out and checking their Twitter site, during the day.
Right.
But they are doing it, and they are doing it more now, and the rules and requirements are relaxing just a little bit, I think, as companies are getting a little more comfortable with it and understanding what information's out there.
Yeah.
So while they direct some of that, they are loosening up just a little bit, and we are also on the conservative side of that, so we're careful what we put out there, because once it's on the internet, it's on the internet forever. So we try to be very careful about that.
Let me ask you a question, because early on, you were talking about how you're with AI Pharma, and they had sort of downsized somewhat, and you were looking at different opportunities, and then you started Proficient Learning, and you talked about how you're in this area. Now, I have no doubt you probably could have gone and worked for another corporation somewhere else, but you decided to stay in this area, start a business. Now, the great thing is a lot of your clients and companies that you work with aren't in this region necessarily.
Right.
Why did you decide to stay, and why did you decide to start the business here?
Right when everything was changing with the existing, the company I was with, it was a tough decision to make. So I could either move to New Jersey or move to Northern California or Boston. Those were the big hubs for pharmaceutical, medical, biotech businesses. And that was something I was considering, but this is such a wonderful area, and we'd sort of found the place where we wanted to stay and didn't want to leave. And I think there are so many hidden resources that are here. There are so many. The university is here. There's a great support for the entrepreneur network here. There are a lot of things that are here that are not available in some other places that are bigger cities, bigger, metropolitan areas. So it was a combination of things, of not wanting to go back into corporate America necessarily, but wanting to serve corporate America, and seeing that there was such a significant need, I felt, for what we were about to do, that I knew we could service those companies. So now we just get to go to New Jersey every week. We get to go to Boston every week.
Yeah.
I get to go to California every week, and serve those companies that have hired us and that are clients of ours. So we have that opportunity to be there without living there.
Yeah.
So we got to stay here.
As we literally run out of time, which I'm very sad about, as always happens, let's maybe finish on that particular topic. What are some of the things, you've already alluded to some of the nice things in this area to support entrepreneurship, and maybe either reiterate or add some of those, but also are there any things you'd like to see additionally or change around here to either attract more entrepreneurs or help support organizations like yourself that are great growth firms that we have here?
The interesting thing about our company is, as you mentioned, we don't have any local clients. It's just the nature of our business. It's the target customers that we have. There aren't a lot of companies that meet that specific criteria that are here. So as a result of that, we have not been as plugged into the local community and we've been in business a little over 6 years now. So we haven't been as plugged into the things that are available to us and to other entrepreneurs really until lately. And I feel like there's a lot more that we can explore, and there's probably a whole lot more that we can give back and give forward to the students that are here, to the organizations that are here, the networking opportunities that are here, and our specific business niche, the things that we do. I mean, I just feel like we have a lot that we can share, that we can give back, that we can offer. And in turn, naturally, whenever you give things out, you get a lot more back. So I just feel like we haven't explored that as much as we could have, and we're looking forward to getting a lot more involved with that.
Well, and I know we're very lucky to have you say that, because I know it's wonderful to have you and the company and Proficient Learning here. And thank you very much for taking the time to share some of the thoughts and experiences with us today, Pam.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us for Envision. We look forward to seeing you again next time.